Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Into the Hive Mind. I'm trying to go a little bit higher quality this time, so let me know what you guys think of the changes. I'll be honest. Since my last video was LVO, and I have made 2 attempts at creating other videos, and honestly, I just really burned out. So trying to get myself a little more excited with just messing around with some different formats here. But we got another tournament style battle report for you today. I recently, and by recently I mean literally this morning, just got back from the Storm of Silence GT, which is up in Spokane, Washington, hosted by Bob. He runs the Gamers Haven up there and is an incredible individual who absolutely knows how to host just really high quality events. So if you ever get a chance to go up there, highly recommend. Really good scene. I will say Bob is very much more on the hosting side rather than the keeping up with the current competitive 40K format. So some of the missions are quite different than what I am used to playing. And if you are also very intimately familiar with competitive 40K, it might be a little different than what you're expecting as well. That being said, again, the event is ran incredibly well, and Bob is definitely more of a 30K enthusiast than 40K, and I can't blame him. All the custom boards that he had created for that, they had 30 different 30K tables, so pretty fitting, very cool event. And yeah, let's get into it. So Storm of Silence, this was a 5-round event. That is probably the only complaint that I have about the event. It was 108 people, and playing only 5 rounds means you're gonna have a lot of undefeated. So at the end of this event, we had 3 undefeated plus 2 draws. 3 people that were 6-0, 2 people that were 5-1. And I don't mind that as much, except for the fact that this is a golden ticket event, and unfortunately that just kind of means you're going to go undefeated, and even then there's like 15 different factors that play into which one of the undefeated people actually gets the golden ticket, and most of that's out of your control. So that would be my only thing about this event. I wish it was 6 rounds. More Warhammer is great. But I understand they're all weekend already, and if we were to actually play that, we would not be leaving the venue until 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. Didn't leave until 5:30 as it was, with only playing 5 rounds. So I totally understand, but that would be my thing. Either, I don't know, I don't want them to cut players, but I also want to play more than 5 rounds. So it's a tough thing. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's go over my list. So my last video was LVO. I've actually attended 2 tournaments since then. I have attended the Wizards GT in February, and I attended RMO, both playing similar Assimilation Swarm lists. And basically I've just been playing with like 400 points of the list, swapping it around. And continued to bring it to the Storm of Silence, been improving on it. I went 4-1 at the Wizards GT, and again, sorry, I really tried making a video on it, and I just completely burned out, and now it's been too long, and I don't remember any of the games. So I apologize, but we're not going to be able to make a video on that one. And then RMO. I don't know what it is about RMO. Last year I went 2-3-1, and this year I went 3-3. So I don't know what it is. RMO is my local 200-person FLG event, and I just perform worse at that event than any other event that I go to, which is just kind of funny, but it is what it is. And again, just kind of got burned out trying to make a video on it. So we're making this one. We're getting back into this. We're making videos. I've got a team tournament in 2 weeks. Would love to make a video recap on that as well. But yeah, enough of an introduction. Storm of Silence, here we are. We're playing Assimilation Swarm. Let's get into my list. All right, so like I said, going for a little higher quality. Let me know if you guys like this. new format of going over the lists, but basically doing this instead of just literally copy pasting from BCP. But I'm playing Tyranids, obviously. I'm running the Assimilation Swarm as discussed. And first off, we start with a Hive Tyrant, and he has the Instinctive Defense enhancement. This is absolutely the core of the list. The list does not play the same without this piece, and it is so crucial in so many matchups. Again, this enhancement gives the Hive Tyrant, as long as he is within 6 inches of a Harvester unit, he gets to heroically intervene for free, and his unit gets fights first. Getting fights first on what is a 400-point unit is really, really powerful. And then on top of that, obviously he gives Assault to the Pyrovores down below. We'll get to those. And, I mean, Aura of Lethal Hits is cute too, but really just fight first on a 400-point giant brick and free heroic intervention that just basically sits front and center of my army, stopping all melee armies, is so ridiculously powerful, and the core of this list, you have to have this if you're playing Assimilation Swarm. Next up, we have the Swarm Lord. This guy, for this event, I basically just kept the Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord literally within 6 inches of each other every single game. As much as possible, at least. I deployed them on the line right next to each other. At previous events, I kind of deployed the Hive Tyrant in the center, and Swarm Lord would take one flank. I think actually these guys just literally walking shoulder to shoulder up the center is so insanely powerful and so difficult for your opponent to push through that that seems to be the way to go. And so that's what I did for this event. Swarm Lord's fantastic. That Vect Aura combining with the Fights First free heroic just makes it impossible really for melee armies to really come in and fight for the center. Then we have the Biovore. Spore Mines are still great for doing secondaries like Engage, Behind, and Area Denial. But on top of that, for the Assimilation Swarm, Biovores are also incredible because they make the Spore Mines. The Spore Mines then die next to a Harvester unit, and the Harvester units take the dead Spore Mine and turn it into like a Pyrovore or a Tyrant Guard or heal a Tyrannifex, and it's really good. So your Spore Mines just become 40-point models, and it's fantastic. So that's really good. We definitely need to keep a Biovore in the list for sure. Then we have the Haruspex. So this is the first of our actual Harvester models. This guy's fantastic, just a really cheap Dreadnought, essentially. The best thing about him is with 14 wounds, you do have the access to the 2 CP Feel No Pain strat, which is really good on him. You also have access to the 1 CP Lethal Crit on 5s, and he has the volume of attacks to make that really powerful. So he's really the only one I ever use that on. But 1 CP Crit 5s with Lethal on 18 attacks is really good, especially for only 125 points. I try to keep him just on a flank objective right within 12 of the Hive Tyrant because, again, I want to use that 2 CP Feel No Pain strat. So being able to make that 1 CP from the Hive Tyrant is, ideal. So if you can, try and keep him there, but he did run out of range quite often in my games. But honestly, with both the Hive Tyrant and the Swarm Lord, I had the CP for it anyways still most of the time, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have a Lictor. This is our token infiltrating unit. I basically will just deploy him over in a corner to do containment turn 1 because the rest of the list is too slow to be able to do any secondaries outside of your deployment zone. So I basically just deploy him to prevent containment, or to be able to do containment and cleanse turn 1. And then on top of that, maybe he gets lucky and precision's out of character. He's also a second unit with fights first, which, funnily enough, it actually so often my opponent sits there and is like, oh, well, I just had a 5-man Marine squad that was planning on charging in, but the Lictor also has fights first, and you're just going to kill 3 of them with the Lictor, and then I don't have enough power to actually kill the Lictor. So he actually just gets left alone a ton, and that's great because then he just continues to score secondaries and occasionally goes out and precisions a character. It's great. Psychophage, this guy is also absolutely crucial to the list. Not only is he a harvester unit, but that 6-inch aura of 6-up Feel No Pain, he basically just follows butt up against the giant Tyrant Guard bricks with the Hive Tyrant and Swarmlord, and just makes sure that they have a 6-up Feel No Pain the whole game. Because the Tyrant Guard have 4 wounds apiece, having that with a 6-up Feel No Pain against any like 2 damage weapons, or, forbid your opponents having flat 4 damage weapons, just having that 6-up Feel No Pain to hit some awkward breakpoints is really powerful. So you definitely want the Psychophage in there. And on top of that, there's just more and more Psychers in the meta, and him having anti-Psycher 4-up dev wounds is becoming more and more relevant. He actually does damage against Psyker units. Next up, we finally have Pyrovores. So nobody else runs Pyrovores, at least not in these kind of numbers. They're fantastic. 3-man Pyrovore units are incredible, especially in Assimilation, because they're T6, 5 wounds, 3-up save. You can spend 2 CP if you need to give them the 5-up Feel No Pain. But often I just keep them in range of Venom Thropes and the Psychophage. And when you're T6, 5 wounds, 3-up save, stealth, cover, 6-up Feel No Pain, you're really annoying to get rid of. And if the opponent can't get rid of all 3, then in my turn I bring one back, and that is my favorite thing to pop Spore Mines, to bring another one back, because then I'm just back to a full 3-man unit. Importantly, Pyrovores are probably only shooting all 3 of them 2 of the 5 turns of the game. You basically are going to get 1 turn of Overwatch, and then you're going to get, one other turn. You're going to get 1 turn of Overwatch, you're going to get tagged, and then you're going to fall back, and then you're going to punch to death whatever tagged them, and then you're going to move forward next turn and flame something, and then you're either dead and soaking up a ton of damage, or or the Tyranids have pushed through and you've kind of won. But that being said, for only 105 points, the amount of damage that these guys soak up is insane. So, and if I think that they're not there for the damage output, they can just literally become a brick wall to block the charges instead of having the Hive Tyrant and Swarmlord against any crucial units. So they're fantastic. Their damage output is significant. Against greater demons and stuff, they will actually do 5 or 6 wounds on average, which is a significant chunk for just a token unit. And then I have a single Pyrovore that is in outflank, so this is just another guy to do secondaries alongside the Lictor. And then speaking of that, we have 3 Raveners. These guys obviously can do the uppy downy thing and are also my objective getters. They are the only ones that are fast enough to get outside of my deployment zone and do other objectives, so I just basically put them on the opposite flank as the Lictor, and then they rush out of my deployment zone, do secondaries, or they hang back and go into deep strike and sit around to do secondaries later. And then against horde matchups, they're just also 21 twin linked attacks, which is pretty cool. Then we have 3 individual Ripper Swarms. These guys are fantastic because they're basically Spore Mines that also trigger +1 to wound against whatever kills them. So I often just hide these behind walls, right? Making sure that at least one is always within 6 inches of the Hive Tyrant. So that way he always has his fights first ability, and they basically just follow up behind him. And if the opponent tries to get cute and snipe them, then I just pop the +1 to wound against whoever did that. It's fantastic. And the other option is I often will suicide charge them into the opponent, into a unit that I really need the +1 to wound against, but I'm not going to deal with right now. I charge the Ripper Swarm in, it dies, I get +1 to wound, and then and then that big unit inevitably ends up charging into my Hive Tyrant, and now I have +1 to wound on the Hive Tyrant with fights first. Generally is how that goes. And on top of that, if you have the CP, you can also heal off of it when it dies, which is pretty cute. Then we have double Tyrannifex. So this is the newest addition to the list that I was trying. So at LVO, I had 6 Zoes with a Neurotyrant as my anti-tank. And then at RMO, I had a single Tyrannifex with Rupture Cannon, and it was way too swingy. So we went with double Tyrannifex because I know they're swingy, but when you double down, one of them probably gets through. Because basically, my joke was with the first Tyrannifex, it's a casino cannon that one turn of the game will do absolutely nothing. One turn of the game will completely pop off and one-shot your target. And the other 3 turns, he makes your opponent spend a CP to re-roll their invuln save. But now if you have a second one, they spend that CP to re-roll their invuln save, and then the other Tyrannifex gets one through and does like 10 damage. Which often is enough to kill the target, either with, like a Pyrovore assist to take off 2 wounds. Then we got the other core of the list, the 2 giant bricks of 6 Tyrant Guard. These go with the Swarmlord and the Hive Tyrant. Occasionally, depending on the matchup, Swarmlord does not get joined by Tyrant Guard. If the opponent just has tons of like anti-infantry where it's better for Swarmlord to be by himself because of keywords or something like that, then I'll do that. But the Hive Tyrant does always want to go with his brick because, again, that enhancement to fights first, going on a 400-point unit, you get so much value out of that. Even if your opponent has anti-infantry keywords, you still want it. And then we round out the list with 3 Venom Thropes. So again, these are giving stealth and cover. Stealth to the Pyrovores, which is actually huge, and then cover to everyone. And the cover is great on the Pyrovores, but also incredible on the Tyrant Guard. Basically gives them back their 2-up armor save. And that just makes them really, really good. So that's the list. Again, very similar to what I brought to LVO. I've been playing with basically this list since November, just kind of playing around with the last 500 points, those 500 points being the double Tyrannifex and 3 Raveners, and maybe that extra Pyrovore. So that's kind of what I've been just swapping in and out, seeing what I really want. The rest of the list, I think, is core, and you just kind of have to have. So yeah, let's get into round 1. Round 1 was against Jorge, and he was playing Ynnari, the Devoted of Ynead, and he was just playing absolute MSU aspect warriors, basically. So he did have the Yinkarn. Again, this is your teleporting monster that is a lot easier to kill now, but decently cheap at 250 points for teleporting around and punching things to death. Just not quite as many mind games as it used to have, but still a very good model that just lets you play the game very differently. And that combined with the Ynnari, end of shooting phase additional move on top of all your aspect tokens to do other moves, it just lets you play the game on a whole nother level than other armies do. So the Yinkarn's great. That was his Warlord. He had 2 units of 5 Dark Reapers. Again, this is just MSU, basically as many aspect host units as he could get. 2x5 Dark Reapers, 2x5 Fire Dragons, 2x5 Howling Banshees, 3x5 Howling Banshees, 2x5 Rangers, 2x3 Shining Spears, 5 Striking Scorpions, 2x5 Swooping Hawks. And then this one was pretty interesting. Basically, 3 different Warlock Conclaves with 2 Warlocks apiece, all basically just in reserve walking on to do secondaries, because they have a very, very small footprint, so it's very difficult to screen them out. And then on top of that, they have pretty good Flamers, and in addition to their little spears. So they're actually quite good. And then 2x5 Warp Spiders and 6 Ynnari Reavers. The Reavers, I actually have not seen super often. I've heard them talked about, so I don't think they're that uncommon of a choice, but I just haven't personally ran into them until now. But basically, they just do mortals when they fly over you, which is quite good. And then they also have just 2 Meltaguns, which is obviously decent. But yeah, so this was a very strong list by Jorge. I like it quite a bit, and I asked him how long he's been playing, and he's like, I've been playing Eldar specifically for 15 years. So basically as long as I've been playing Tyranids, he's been playing Eldar. So both of us pretty much mono-faction experts, and really excited to be playing this game against him. All right, so here we are. This is our deployment. So our mission is Mission A. We are doing Tipping Point with Take and Hold. So that is just for every objective that you hold, you get 5 points. And Tipping Point is the slightly offset Hammer and Anvil. As you can see, I deployed everything on the line because that's how this list plays. Pyrovores on the top right flank, Pyrovores in the center, ready to push up. So importantly, I told you that this event had some funky missions. All of day one was played on GW Layout 8, which is, I've played on it like twice. It's okay, but basically you end up with these 4, what would be crates-ish in the middle, and they just kind of block all firing lanes and make it really kind of difficult to move around. My Pyrovores especially do not like this because they're 380 mil bases. Just cannot get wholly on that piece of terrain and through it, and I will just never be able to fire all 3 Pyrovores at the same time with the way that these crates are laid out. It's just never going to happen on this kind of terrain. But as you can see, I have a Lictor down at the bottom, infiltrating forward, ready to do some secondaries, and Haruspex ready to follow up onto that expansion objective and just basically sit there and be safe, and basically discourage the opponent from taking my expansion. He has his striking Scorpions infiltrated up front and center, ready to basically scout forward and perform a wall if he goes first. Importantly, striking Scorpions cannot be overwatched, which is really good considering my 3 Pyrovores are right there waiting for him, but yeah, not going to be able to overwatch those. And then, as discussed, I have the Hive Tyrant basically front and center in the middle, and Swarmlord. For this matchup, this is one of the matchups where I did elect to split the Swarmlord off of his Tyrant Guard unit. So that means that basically the Hive Tyrant is front and center with his 6 Tyrant Guard, and also Swarmlord's 6 Tyrant Guard are hanging out independent up there with him. And then Swarmlord himself is just hanging out behind a piece of terrain, because him just being T10 is actually kind of a break point. And with him, my opponent having 3 units of Howling Banshees, having Swarmlord able to just basically tank those because they wound him on 6s. Instead of 3s is what they would wound him on with the Tyrant Guard. It's actually better for him to just not have the ablative wounds and be wounded on 6s instead of 3s. So it does make him a little more susceptible to Fire Dragons, but also Fire Dragons shooting into Tyrant Guard when I am a monster unit. That's the other thing, is Swarmlord joining them also makes the Fire Dragons better against the Tyrant Guard. With this, basically, these Tyrant Guard can now take out Fire Dragons because they're no longer monsters, but they're still T8. So the Fire Dragons don't get rerolls against them. And then, yeah, Swarmlord can take out the Howling Banshees. So that's why I split those apart. And then, as you can see, Jorge deployed very hidden. I keep telling my opponents that I don't have guns other than flamers, and they all keep deploying out of line of sight anyways. But it's fine. I mean, he's certainly fast enough to still get in position wherever he wants. But I don't know if he's afraid of 2 Rupture Cannon shots hitting some Aspect Warriors. But yeah. Anyways, he's deployed very defensively. However, Jorge did manage to get top of turn, which I was quite okay with because, yeah, all I would have done is walk forward into range to get shot. So him getting first turn, the only thing that mattered here is that he was able to have those striking Scorpions just basically walk forward and tag my Pyrovores up at the top right, or at the very top of the screen, and lock them in combat, and he was out of range for me to heroically intervene. So they just got tagged. They're going to be stuck there punching Scorpions for a turn. He killed one of them. I brought it back. So damage was negligible on both sides, but he did prevent me from shooting Pyrovores and being able to leave my deployment zone with them. The other thing he did is his secondaries were extend and secure no man's land. So that was just an auto 10 for him because basically his expansion objective, it's you can't see in the ruin in this picture, but he has 5 rangers in that ruin there, and basically they ended up scouting kind of closer to the center, and then they just advanced to where you had one guy on his expansion objective and one guy towing the center objective. So he held those 2 objectives for secure no man's land, and obviously because of that he also got extend for a free 10 secondary points right off the bat. My turn 1, I pulled establish locus and sabotage. That was kind of rough because basically I had to make a choice between, did I want to establish locus in the center, or did I want to charge and kill off all 5 of his rangers? Because the rangers did have a reactive move, I elected to just remove the ranger piece and kind of get more center position, and elected just not to score any points on established locus. The only unit that could have done that would have been the Hive Tyrant, and I thought it was better to get him in a forward position and remove a scoring piece from my opponent than getting the 2 points that I otherwise would have gotten. But I also got sabotage, which I believe I did with my Haruspecs on my expansion objective. So yeah, in this image, this is where you see his rangers basically touching the 2 objectives, and he basically just pushed forward where everything is hanging in range to jump out next turn. But everything is still very hidden and is just right up against the edges of the wall, ready to jump out when I move out. And this image is the end of my turn 1. I basically did just push forward with absolutely everything. And like I said, I ended up charging in with the Hive Tyrant to kill off those 5 rangers. And that allowed him to be front and center of the rest of the army. Importantly, I did tail the 1 Tyrant Guard back to still be in range of Venom Thropes and Psychophage, so they will have cover and a 6-up Feel No Pain. I sabotaged with the Tyrannifex. Jorge did warn me that Fire Dragons with a reactive move from shooting would be able to kill the Tyrannifex, and I told him that was fine with me because also Swarmlord was right there, so if he wanted to kill the Tyrannifex instead of Swarmlord in this matchup where he has nothing but T3 models, I was okay with that for 3 points, because then he'd lose a Fire Dragon unit, which is kind of the only thing in his army that would actually be able to kill Swarmlord. So I said, yeah, I'm doing sabotage, and sure enough, he elected not to go for it. Importantly, the 6 Tyrant Guard that are without a character charged into the 5 Striking Scorpions and somehow didn't kill them with their 30 attacks at 5/1/1. I guess he did pop the -1 to wound in combat strat, so I was hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s, because unfortunately I didn't have Synapse over there since they're not joined to Swarmlord. They were only strength 5, and with -1 to wound, I was wounding on 4s. So I guess that's why. However, I only killed 2 Striking Scorpions, which is a little ridiculous. But yeah, so what that means, though, is that we are completely tied up over there in the top corner, where it's 3 Striking Scorpions against 5 Tyrant Guard, because I think he killed 1, and 3 Pyrovores. And that's also blocking my Tyrannifex, is also just kind of roadblocked back up there with just too much stuff. So again, that's fine. The Tyrannifexes aren't doing much this game, but still a little annoying. Yeah, that's the end of turn 1. All right, well, looks like this might be the end of turn 2. So Jorge did get 10 primary. He held his home plus his expansion objective. And basically for secondaries, he ended up drawing Marked for Death and Engage. He was able to get Engage pretty easily because he's ridiculously fast Eldar. And then he got... for Marked for Death, I chose my Tyrannifex in the top right, as well as my Biovore and my Ripper Swarm that's hiding in the ruin next to the Psychophage in kind of the center right. He did not kill any of those because he couldn't reach them, but he did elect to hold on to it because turn 3 he had a whole bunch of Flamer Warlocks coming on that would be able to probably kill either the Biovore or the Ripper Swarm. But his turn 2, he came out with everything except for the all the Shining Spears, but came out with at least one of all of the MSU units. So one Fire Dragon unit came out and shot and killed some Tyrant Guard. And then Banshees came out. Both Dark Reaper squads came out. He basically just shot and killed, I think, 3 or 4 of my Tyrant Guard. I think 3. And then I was able to heal one of them back. Yeah, that's right. He killed 3 Tyrant Guard. I brought one back. The other thing is that... Oh, yeah, and the Banshees went down to the bottom right to kill... Or no, it was Warp Spiders. Tried to kill my Raveners, but that also got him engage. They failed to kill the Raveners. They brought me down to a single Ravener with 2 wounds left, and then I healed one back. The Haruspecs and Raveners jumped on the Warp Spiders and killed them, and that's where the Yinkarn popped up, as you can see, because there was not quite enough room. The Warp Spiders were basically lining that edge where the Yinkarn's base was too big to fit, and then because my models were all around as well, the Yinkarn appeared like 8 inches from where the Warp Spiders died on my objective, thankfully not contesting it because the Haruspecs and Lictor out-OC'd it. But that was pretty fun there, just having the Yinkarn show up in my on my expansion objective. Swarmlord charged in to some Banshees to try and kill them. Basically, I elected not to charge my Tyrant Guard in and only charged in Swarmlord and let him choose on if the Banshees were going to pile into them or not. He chose not to, and then Swarmlord just completely whiffed and only killed a single Banshee, so that was great. I mean, he didn't really take any damage in return, but it also just meant that Swarmlord was just kind of stuck up there getting pretty much no value. And then final thing is in the top right, we finally killed off all of the Striking Scorpions. And yeah, he had come forward and fired some Swooping Hawks at the Pyrovores. Yeah, didn't do much. Anything else? I don't think so. Let's move on to start of Jorge's turn 3. Oh, I guess I should mention that for my secondaries, I did score 5 for No Prisoners and 5 for Secure No Man's Land, because I did kill off a bunch of little MSU squads, and obviously have the center and my expansion objective. So for Jorge's turn 3, I actually decided to pop Shadow in the Warp because I currently had Swarmlord pretty far pushed forward to make like 3 of his units at -1. And on top of that, I knew I would be losing Swarmlord this turn because he was right out in front of a unit of 5 Fire Dragons. So I popped Shadow in the Warp, and the 3 units failed. I think it was basically all of his bikes failed. None of the other units did, but importantly, the unit that was on his expansion objective did fail, so he actually did lose 5 primary points because of that, which was pretty cool. And then he did end up bringing in... the Yinkarn actually basically walked over to get within 12 of that Ripper that was behind the wall that was still marked for death, and flamed and killed that Ripper to get the 5 points there. And then charged back into the Haruspecs. He also had drawn Storm Hostile, so if the Yinkarn kills the Haruspecs, then he gets Storm Hostile. Fire Dragons did come forward and pop Swarmlord. The Howling Banshees fell back away from Swarmlord. Meanwhile, the Reavers flew over my Tyrant Guard and did, I think, 5 mortal wounds. Dark Reapers fired into Tyrant Guard again, and I think brought me down to 2 Tyrant Guard after everything. Yeah. Trying to think what else happened this round. Let's see if there's another picture. Oh, yeah, there we go. Everything happened. So yeah, Jorge just pushed with his entire army, because I was front and center, and basically threatening him anyways, so his options were continue to hide back in his deployment zone and do nothing to me and just let me have the entire board, or come out with everything. And he decided to come out with everything. So, yeah, let's see. So, like I said, Fire Dragons ended up killing the Swarm Lord. And I think between all the rest of his stuff, yeah, he really didn't do a lot to the Tyrant Guard in the center. He was really trying to, but with all the shooting, still, I think only killed 1 or 2. He might have killed 2, and then I brought 1 back when Swarmlord died. We have some Howling Banshees down at the bottom there, alongside some more Swooping Hawks. Those did pick up the Raveners. And like I said, the Yin-Karn charged into the Haruspecs. I had the Haruspecs pop the Feel No Pain, and with that managed to live the Yin-Karn's punches. It had 3 health left, so very glad I did pop the Feel No Pain. Yeah, the Yin-Karn did 15 damage, so enough that I would have died from a single hit, and then I rolled 5 ups out of 15, which is actually below average, but it was enough to live, which is all that matters. And then he charged in Shining Spears into the Hive Tyrant in the center and more Howling Banshees into the Pyrovores in the center. Managed to kill off, I think, 2 of the 3 Pyrovores, and the Shining Spears, I got to fight first, and I killed off the 2-man Shining Spear unit. Because I overwatched and killed 1 bike as they came over. And then fought first and killed off the remaining of those 2 bikes, and then the other 3 bikes got to punch the Tyrant Guard, and I think killed off the rest of that unit, but didn't do any damage to the Hive Tyrant. And then the Banshees, I think, charged into the Tyrannifex just to tie it up, but that didn't do a lot because it can still shoot. It's just not going to be pushing forward anymore, and it's not. I guess it's not threatening walking onto objectives anymore, which is kind of important. Yeah, so he definitely did damage. I don't think it was enough damage. I still have all my Tyrant Guard up at the top that are starting to be able to threaten his expansion objective, and I still have my Hive Tyrant in the center and a decent number of Pyrovores. So here we go, final picture of this game. The Haruspecs did also punch the Yin-Karn back and put it down to, I think, 6 wounds. And then on my turn, the Tyrannifex in combat with the Swooping Hawks shot the Yin-Karn, who CP rerolled to make the 4-up invuln. Didn't take any damage from that, but I then charged in the Psychophage. No, he reactive moved with his Yanari thing because I killed things in shooting, and had another unit of Swooping Hawks fly in front of the Psychophage to block it from being able to charge the Yin-Karn. But the Lictor did charge in, the Pyrovore did flame the Yin-Karn, and then the Haruspecs punching it again. I did manage to kill the Yin-Karn. It came down to literally the last roll, where basically the Haruspecs' mouth did 2 wounds at AP1. He needed to roll both 3-ups because he had 2 health left, and he rolled a 1 and a 3, and he was out of CP after already CP re-rolling against the Tyrannifex. So the Yin-Karn did die, but it literally came down to the last dice. And then as you can see here, I've cleaned up all the little elves in the middle. He does have kind of one more final wave able to come and push forward at me, but we actually timed out, which was a little weird. Neither one of us felt like we were playing really slow, but it was just, I guess there was just tons of interactions with everything that I do. He has a reactive thing about. We were in combat pretty early, so I'm not really sure. Basically, as we're scoring turn 3, they say, hey guys, 10 minutes left. And so I look at him, I'm like, okay, well, are we just talking through turn 4? Because I guess we're definitely not playing a turn 5. What would you like to do? And he just kind of looked at it and he's like, well, because the Yin-Karn died, I don't think I have a chance anymore. You've kind of just finally pushed through my army. You're currently winning by 9. And I think if we were to play turn 4, you'd just win by more. So we'll just call it here. And so that's what we did. I hate not finishing games. I really, really do. But we both asked each other, we're like, do you feel like I got slow played? And neither one of us did. So we're not really sure what happened there. But yeah, I guess Ynnari games just take a lot because of interactions, and I don't know. Again, both of us knew our armies really well. There was no rules questions. There was no really anything. We were both just playing the game, but ran out of time. So, but I do agree with the assessment. He had basically one final push to try and break me, but I still had 5 monsters left, plus a full another brick of 6 Tyrant Guard. And my Pyrovores were about to start healing back to full. I do think he was correct in the assessment that I was just going to start winning by even more. So yeah, round 1 versus Ynnari. Very good game against Jorge, fantastic player. Let me check and see how he finished this event. Oh, all right. Well, that explains it. I was going to say, I knew at the end of day 1 he had won his other 2 games, and then I wasn't able to check in with him afterwards, and it looks like he dropped after day 1. So I'm not sure if something came up or he only wanted to play if he was undefeated. I don't know, but he did win both of his games after me and then dropped. So, all right, fair enough. All right, so round 2. Round 2 was against Michael Buckler, and hilariously enough, I traveled to this event by myself. None of my teammates were able to make it to this one. And on top of that, I didn't really know all the guys that I expected to be at this event weren't there. So I just made a bunch of new friends, and Michael included. Basically, these guys, they were just the group walking to lunch in front of me, and I asked if I could join them, and they said sure, and they were a lovely crowd. And then immediately after lunch, we ended up playing each other, so that was just kind of a fun little coincidence there. But Michael is also playing a super fun list that I have not played against before. He is playing the Dark Angels Company of Heroes, which is the bike detachment. So he's playing just a shitload of Ravenwing, and yeah, his list is Azrael, who was on foot, joined to the 5 Incursors. Then he has a Chaplain on bike with double Ravenwing command squad. So the Chaplain on bike is joined with Samael on bike, and those guys joined the 6-man Outrider squad. And then he has 2 Ravenwing command squads, which are 5 bikes. I'm sorry, guys, I have no idea what these enhancements do. Master of Maneuver and Recon Hunter. I believe one of them gives them Scout, 8. So, yeah, no idea what those actually do, but he had very, very fast pressure because his entire army has advance, fallback, shoot, and charge, which is just really good on guys that also move 12. I'm really glad I'm not playing Invasion Fleet because pretty much every single model in this army is mounted, not infantry or tank. So that's fun. But yeah, so he has 5 Intercessors as well, just to screen. And then a 6-man Outrider squad, again, joined with Samael and Chaplain on bike. 5 JPI, double Ballistus, so there's his only 2 tanks. The 5 Incursors, again, joined with Azrael. 2 single Invader ATVs with multi-meltas, and then 3 units of Ravenwing Black Knights. These are joined to the Ravenwing command squads, and yeah, those are pretty good units. And then he has a 5-man scout squad. So let's take a look at what this army actually looks like, because it looks incredible on the table. So yeah, here's his army, very nicely painted, and really fun army to play against. Michael did a great job. So if you want, pause the picture, zoom in, take a look at these models. They're gorgeous. He did great. All right, but now for the actual game. So we are, again, same terrain layout 8. That's the same for all 3 missions day 1. We are playing Scorched Earth. So that's, you get 5 points per objective that you hold up to 10, but you can take an action to start burning an objective, And if you still hold that objective in your next command phase, that objective is burned, you score your 5 points, and that objective is removed from the game. If you do it on your opponent's home objective, you get 10 points. So I deployed on the line, and Michael deployed slightly back from the line, but still not exactly super far back. Still pretty much out of line of sight, so he didn't want my 2 Tyrannifexes to shoot him turn 1. Even the unit that's at the top center, it looks like they're right out in the open, but because all of these boxes or all these crates in the center actually overlap with each other, there's no line through the center of the table. So again, I'm not entirely sure why so many armies play so far back. I tell them that my army is slower than Death Guard, that I literally walk 6 inches and I don't have advance in charge. But people still apparently are really threatened by it, so they deploy pretty far back. I did get first turn, and I knew his entire army had advance in charge and was ridiculously fast, so I just said, come at me, bro. Importantly, all of his Blackwing Knight bike squads have anti-monster 4-up dev wounds in combat. So that's something to think about, and I did consider once again detaching the Tyrant Guard, but I asked him how many attacks it was, and he said it was 3 attacks per bike and they're 1 damage. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just tank that on my 24 ablative wounds then, and I should be fine. And so yeah, I got first turn, and I had deployed on the line, and I just shoved. And I also got area denial and containment. Containment, I believe, was Lictor up in the top left. Looks like he's hiding behind the ruin over there, but yeah. Here is what it looks like after I shoved. Literally just the entire army advanced, and yeah, like I said, Lictor, contain up at the top. Everyone else just ran forward, and I basically just formed a solid wall with, again, the free heroic and fights first at the front. With the Pyrovores on his expansion objective, just saying, hey, you do need to come out and play at least a little bit, otherwise I'm literally going to hold every single objective. I guess in Scorched Earth that doesn't matter that much, but if he just kept leaving me there, I'd start scorching. But yeah, I literally just shoved up the entire, advanced everyone straight forward. I figured he can get me anyways, so let's see what he can do. And this is probably my favorite picture of the entire tournament, because he said challenge accepted and ran his entire army forward, primed up all of his plasma guns, started firing away at me, and charged everyone in. And to be fair, he did get some incentive to do this. The secondaries told him bring it down and assassinate, so my only characters are the Hive Tyrants, so he went for it. The Ballistas advanced forward to get a line. They get assault from this detachment rule, so they advanced forward and were able to start blasting away at some Tyrant Guard. Unfortunately for Michael, I rolled like 30% 6-ups. I wasn't anywhere near like 50% 6-ups, but my Feel No Pains were pretty damn good this turn. And my 5-up saves against his plasma were not too bad either. Although on his side, he did actually, only one guy killed himself with a Hazardous out of like 30 plasma guns shooting me. So that's not too bad. But yeah, overall, I think I didn't lose a ton. So yeah, looking at it, he threw everything into Swarmlord, and I believe he brought Swarmlord down to 5, maybe 3, but not enough. Swarmlord did survive, so he was not able to bring it down or assassinate, and unfortunately in the process, I did basically kill off an entire Blackwing squad with the Fights First Hive Tyrant. And then he did kill 2 of the Pyrovores that were the front wall, but the third one lived with 3 health left, which means it's going to be able to fall back and start regenerating. And then here we have the end of my turn 2. So I did score a 10 because I held my expansion in my home. I think I actually held the center 2 still. But and then I drew Bring It Down and No Prisoners. No Prisoners was pretty easy. His entire army was right in front of me. And Bring It Down, the Haruspex walked forward, popped lethal on 5s, charged a Ballistus, and actually just managed to kill it. Which is pretty wild because the Tyrannofex is both whiffed. Well, one Tyrannofex shot at the Ballistus and whiffed, and the other Tyrannofex shot at his ATV, and he made his, I think he gets a 5-up invuln or something. Or maybe he just bossed his, he had a 6-up save because of, and yeah, he just made it. So, good for him. But yeah, then the Haruspex came through and just decided to one-shot the Ballistus all by himself. And then obviously, with continuing to have fights first in the middle, managed to kill off the remaining, most of the bikes. And Pyrovores basically barbecued the Outriders and Samael. I think that was with some... Oh, that's right. Outriders and Samael charged into the Pyrovores on his turn 1, and the Haruspex interrupted, or heroically intervened. And so I had fights first with the Hive Tyrant that killed a bunch of Black Knights, and then the Haruspex. Basically, Samael got to punch Swarmlord, and then the 6 Outriders had to punch the Haruspex, and they didn't. They did like 4 damage to it, and then it ate like 4 of them, enough that he got back out of combat, and the Pyrovores then were able to flame them and finish the rest of the... Or no, Swarmlord punched back and killed off the rest of the squad. That's what it was, because Samael was in combat with Swarmlord. But anyways, Haruspex was freed back up, Pyrovores were freed back up, and they really just completely collapsed that top flank. Meanwhile, Hive Tyrant and Swarmlord are holding down the center, especially because Swarmlord then got to heal after killing Samael. And yeah, like I said, the Pyrovores at the bottom fell back and began regenerating as well. And yeah, he's basically left with one final full 10-man Deathwing squad to try and hit again, but really all I've lost is the Tyrant Guard for Swarmlord. So he bounced pretty hard. On his turn 2, he did score 10 though, because he still had his home and his expansion objective. But he had held on to Bring It Down and Assassinate, and he still failed to kill Swarmlord. I think he put him down to two or 3. But really just didn't have much to allocate over there, and what he did have, I just heroiced and punched to death with the other Hive Tyrant. So yeah, he still couldn't get Swarmlord, and with how bad he bounced, he kind of just started throwing stuff away anyways. Was like, yeah, it doesn't matter at this point. Don't really blame him. Got pretty discouraged after after charging in, doing so little damage, and literally losing over half his army in response. But that just comes with... That's kind of what happens if you don't know what my list does. I mean, I didn't play any gotchas or anything, but just if you haven't played against it before, the sheer output that this list has, well, really the sheer durability that this list has is just insane. So yeah, we started turn 3, and I got Recover Assets and Overwhelming Force. Both were very easy for me to do because I had my Pyrovore came in on from reserve turn 3, his deployment zone, started doing Recover Assets. I had the Lictor in the middle and Biovore at home. So I was able to get another 11 there, and Michael essentially conceded at this point. Basically, I then charged in and killed the 3rd Deathwing squad, and the Haruspex killed the other Ballistus with help from the Tyrannofex. And yeah, at that point, he basically had nothing left, and we called it there. So another win for the Tyranids. We are 2-0. Let's just see how Michael finished up in the event, though. All right. Respectable. Michael ended up taking 40th overall. This was 106 people at this event. So he only lost one other game after me. He won his round 3, lost round 4, won round 5. So not too bad for a very cool Ravenwing list. Nice job, Michael. So round 3, I am 2-0, and I knew I couldn't dodge Death Guard forever. The new book was allowed this weekend, and I think there was like 12 Death Guard armies out of the 106 players. So, yeah, I'm going up against Timothy Grant and his Death Guard list. He is playing Champions of Contagion. I did not get any reps or really experience at all about the new Death Guard before this event, unfortunately. But he's playing Champions of Contagion, which is basically each battle round he gets to decide what his contagion is rather than picking at the beginning of the game. And then there's apparently a weird thing. There's he can permanently get 2 plague abilities for the rest of the game if he has his Biologus kill a character in combat. Thankfully for me, both of my only characters are the 2 Hive Tyrants, so that's actually pretty difficult for him to get. And then there's another way for him to get all 3 contagions, counting on a unit. I'm not sure how they do that. It didn't end up happening in our game. But let's go over his list. So he has the Biologus Putrefier. This was joined with Plague Marines. He has an enhancement Final Ingredient. This allows him to, once per game, just choose to have the Fight's First ability. Really good on Plague Marines, because, this is the detachment where they can just 1 CP reroll all hits and wounds, apparently. They needed that. Then they got Foul Blight Spawn. I'm not even sure which character that is. Lord of Contagion, Lord of Virulence. So I believe the Lord of Contagion is the one that I did not know he had this ability, but apparently it's either the Contagion or Virulence. One of them just picks a unit within line of sight, and all your guys reroll 1s to hit against that unit, and if you're a blast weapon, you reroll all hits. So that's really good with the bloat drones, which we'll get to later in the list. And then, double Malignant Plague Caster. Those also went with Plague Marines. I don't remember what those... There's too many characters for Death Guard. I don't know what they all do. I believe they give them lethal hits, or maybe they give them sustained hits, because Death Guard just already get lethal hits. Not sure, but anyways, the combination is between the Biologus and the Plague Caster, they end up with lethal and sustained and crit on 5s. And then they spend 1 CP and they reroll all hits and wounds. And that's apparently for shooting as well as combat. So, seems really, really, really good. Then you got Typhus joined in with some Death Shroud Terminators later. And so 2 units of 10 Plague Marines, they go in Chaos Rhinos. The Rhinos give you full rerolls to wound if they shoot at the same target that the Rhino did when on the turn that they disembark. So that allows 1 unit to get out, reroll all wounds, the other unit and then basically the other unit spends a CP to reroll all hits and wounds. It's really, really good. Double Chaos Spawn. Chaos Spawn got a massive update. They're just really good in all the new Chaos books. Seems like they just got a massive glow up across the board. Then 2 units of 3 Death Shroud Terminators. These guys are crazy for how cheap they are. 140 points gets you 3 4-wound Terminator bodies that gained a toughness, an inch of movement, and a wound. And then, their weapons are pretty good. Strength 8, AP 2 for 2, 4 attacks each. Not bad. And then some fetid bloat drones. Oh, and then he has a strat to 6-inch deep strike the Death Shroud Terminators as long as you're in contagion range, and it's really, really easy to get with
enemies in contagion range. And then, yeah, triple fetid bloat drone with heavy blight launcher. These guys are definitely undercosted because their new gun is a D6 plus 2 shots at 10, 2, 3. And if they kill a unit, then on a 5-up, every single unit, or on a 5-up after they kill a unit with their gun, every unit within 6 inches of the unit that they killed counts as being infected. And that's pretty good, because it's until his next shooting phase, I believe, is what he said. Which means he can rapid ingress 6 away with Death Shrouds after that. It's pretty good. My Phytic Blight Hauler, just 2 crack missiles and a multi-melta, and then 2 × 10 Poxwalkers. Just screens that also throw out the contagions. Yeah, Death Guard are, obviously I've said this 6 times over this list, Death Guard are really good right now. But yeah, my first time going into it, I knew they were strong. I knew they had ridiculous damage. Unfortunately, I don't have much of an option to avoid them. My army doesn't have guns, so for the most part, I kind of have to get up close and personal with them, which is right where they want you to be. They Death Guard definitely excel as long as you're within 12 inches of them. And my army kind of also wants to be within 12 inches of them. So let's take a look at the game. All right, so we are playing mission P, I think this is. It is Hammer and Anvil deployment, still on GW map 8, and we're doing Burden of Trust. So that is where you get 4 points for each objective you control in no man's land, and then 2 points if you basically have a unit start your turn on an objective and then still be on that objective on your next command phase. Then you get 2 additional points. It's an interesting one. And then on top of that, we were playing Hidden Supplies. So the center objective split into 2 objectives. So it's pretty easy to get a lot of primary points in this mission. But because we were both kind of smallish mid-range armies, we were fighting over objectives a lot. And yeah, here's the deployment. So I did end up getting first turn. I basically deployed on the line. I thought about hiding, but again, I only move 6 inches. If I deploy out of line of sight, then I just end up spending a turn and a half getting back out into the open, and then I get shot anyways. So honestly, with this list, it's kind of better to just start on the line and push forward. Because, yeah, you just need to get to grips with your opponent as soon as possible. And yeah, so I drew Engage on All Fronts and Bring It Down. I got 2 CP from Swarmlord. He deployed everything out of line of sight, so there was no way I was going to get Bring It Down. So I pitched that for a CP, and I got Cleanse. Since I was doing nothing other than advancing forward anyways, I figured I would try and get an action secondary, and I was rewarded. Getting Cleanse allowed me to basically just move my Fights First Hive Tyrant up to the objective in the middle, and thankfully that's actually really close to my deployment zone, so I didn't have to push too far up and expose him too much, and just be able to cleanse there. And essentially I basically just pushed up to all of the walls, kind of poking out, where he will be able to shoot me, but he has to kind of expose himself to do it. And yeah, did my double cleanse and got my engage. The big thing that I did was knowing that he just kind of was going to take up his half of the board and I was going to take up my half of the board, I wasn't really relying on the up-down of the Raveners this game, so I decided to trade them early for 10 Poxwalkers. Unfortunately, they did not kill the 10 Poxwalkers. They only killed 8 of them. So I lost my 3 Raveners for 8 Poxwalkers, which, obviously I'd like to get the whole set, but Wasn't a horrendous trade, but that's the only damage that I did turn 1. And then we go on to Tim's turn 1. Okay, nope, pictures skipped to the end of my turn 2, but that's fine. So Tim's turn 1, he also drew Cleanse and Storm Hostile. So basically he just got his Plague Marines out on his expansion objective in the bottom. Plague Marines got out OC'd me off of that objective, and they cleansed, and then he grabbed his expansion one in the center and cleansed that as well with a bloat drone. He had his spawn killed off my Raveners, and yeah, basically just kind of repositioned. He took some pot shots at my Haruspecs, but I used the 2 CP 5-up Feel No Pain, and after 2 bloat drones and a Myphitic, he'd only done like 3 damage to me. So yeah, he kind of just decided not to charge and just cleanse and score some points and let me come to him. He did choose the -1 save for the most part, and then I think on turn 3 he swapped it to -1 to hit, but for the other 5 turns of the game it was at -1 save pretty much the whole time. So yeah, now this is the end of my turn 2. I did score, I ended up with Burden on my home, and I had held 1 objective. I know you don't score Burden until the end of your next turn, so that means end of turn 2, I scored my home for Burden, and that's all. But I drew Behind Enemy Lines and Storm Hostile. Tim was nice here. I completely... Or no, well, that was Engage, actually. Tim was nice. I forgot that I had had Engage until I was scoring up the turn, and he did let me reposition my Spore Mine to be able to get that. So thank you for that. But then turn 2, I got Behind Enemy Lines, and basically I put a Spore Mine there, he killed it, and then I put the Spore Mine immediately right back in the exact same spot, and it scored Behind Enemy Lines as well. However, that means that none of my Spore Mines are actually in my lines to heal me, but I will take the 5 points just from Spore Mines. Like, I can't complain about that. It just, yeah, on a turn where I'm about to get hit really, really hard, it did mean that I didn't have like the throwaway Spore Mines to regenerate. But yeah, so I had Behind Enemy Lines and Storm Hostile. That was pretty simple. I basically went after the top objective, as well as my Haruspecs charged his bloat drone on his like center expansion. Unfortunately, when the Haruspecs charged in, the Plague Marines had a heroic. I'll be honest here, I was like right at 6 inches, and I very easily could have moved him outside of 6 inches. But basically knowing Tim was like, yep, you're right at 6, so I'm going to heroic. I thought about saying like, oh, well, I'll just move just outside of 6, because I definitely had the movement to do it. But instead I was like, you know what? He's got 2 CP, I've got 2 CP. He'll use... If he really wants to punch me, he has to use 1 for heroic, make the charge, and use 1 to get fights first, and then he's not spending any CP to actually hurt me. And I'll use my 2 CP to get a 4-up Feel No Pain, because he's not going to be able to take the objective from me. And that is what happened, and I used my free CP from the Hive Tyrant on him, because I was within 12, so... I did all that, and I got a 4-up Feel No Pain, and the Plague Marines didn't even have the rerolls. And, yeah, but he did roll a 10 on his Heroic Intervention, so he did manage to get the entire unit in, just not on the objective to take it from me. But that was pretty interesting there. The Tyrannifex did blow up 1 bloat drone. That was my shooting phase. And then Swarmlord charged up and to kill his 2 spawn. But yes, so he charges in, or heroically intervenes into the Haruspecs and spends his last CP to get fights first on his unit. And then punches me with hitting on 3s, sustained lethal on 5s, but no rerolls. And then I'm T11, so wounding me on 5s. And then I have a 4-up Feel No Pain with 14 wounds. And I died anyways. So... that's cool. Like, I knew Plague Marines hit really hard in combat, but I figured, yeah, 4-up Feel No Pain, and he doesn't get the rerolls that I would... And this was the shooty unit. This wasn't even the combat unit. But yeah, no, I still just died. Admittedly, I did roll pretty poorly on my Feel No Pains. The first batch of his heavy weapons did 12 damage to me, and I only made 3 out of my 12 4-up Feel No Pains, so that hurt. And then, yeah, he overkilled me by about 3 wounds after everything. So honestly, the trade isn't that bad, burning the 2 CP from him and getting his Plague Marines out in the open, except for the fact that now it's going to be his turn, and those Plague Marines get to hit me anyways, again, and I wasted my 2 CP to try and keep the Haruspecs alive. Yeah, it was just a massive swing, because I used my 2 CP, wasted it, and I lost the Haruspecs. I didn't get to punch the Bloat Drone or any of the Plague Marines. So that hurt a lot. Swarmlord obviously picked up the 2 Chaos Spawn. And the other Terran effects popped the Rhino with Plague Marines in it. So at least they were going to have to spend 2 CP because they were in Swarmlord's Vectora if they want the full rerolls. And then, yeah, my Fight's First Hive Tyrant basically was just kind of stuck in the center of the board. Wasn't sure which direction he needed to go. He didn't have the movement to really go towards either flank, so he's just kind of waiting to pivot one way or the other. I also know that I have Death Shroud impending probably very soon. Because, yeah, Tim has about 800 points still in reserve, which is pretty crazy. Alright, well, this is apparently a pretty intense game because I did not take super frequent pictures. This looks like the end of Tim's turn 2. He did bring in a unit of Death Shroud. I believe it's the one with Typhus. He looked at me and did 5 mortals, because that's what Typhus does now. He just looks at you. On a 1, he takes D3 mortals. On a 2+, you take D6. And on a 6, I think it's D3 plus 3. But he rolled a 2 through 5, and then he rolled a 5 for the number of mortals. And the Plague Marines from both sides shot into my Fight's First Hive Tyrant and picked up all of the Tyrant Guard, combined with the Blight Drones. Basically, all the shooting brought me down, or killed off all the Tyrant Guard. And then the Plague Marines charged in. I did Overwatch with the Pyrovores, because I was not... Because I got all 3 of them in range, and I think I killed 3 of the Plague Marines. Not horrendous, but they're T6 now, so I'm wounding them on 4s instead of 3s. And yeah, the Plague Marines charged in. The Plague Marines charged into the Pyrovores. I Overwatched, and then I free Heroic'd into the Plague Marines. And yeah, the Overwatch killed 2 of them, and then the Hive Tyrant, with his Fights First, only killed 3 of them with his 10 attacks that are AP 2 for 3. Yeah, so that was subpar, but at least on the bright side, when the characters smacked me back, I went down to a single wound, but I did live. And that was very important that I lived. Not for points or anything, but obviously me having Fights First, staying in combat with these guys, mattered a little bit. So that was the zoomed in picture. This one is what the whole turn looks like. So the other Plague Marines charged into Swarmlord. They did pop the 2 CP to reroll everything, and they killed off 5 of Swarmlord's 6 Tyrant Guard. And then his punchback, I think he killed like 4 of them. So I'm whittling him down, but I'm definitely taking way more losses than he is. Yeah, Death Guard hit really, really hard. But as far as secondaries, he did have Containment, which basically his Lord of Virulence... Oh, and that's the other thing. The Lord of Virulence showed up, looked at my Hive Tyrant, and said, all of the Blight Drones reroll all hits against you. So he basically has Oath for at least for all of his shooting, which is pretty neat. So that's how I lost all my Tyrant Guards so quickly. And then But like that's not even a shooting attack, so he also did containment with that guy, and then he drew extend, which is very easy to get. So he got 5 points there. And yeah, this is what it looks like at the end of Tim's turn 2. So my Pyrovores in the front are in combat. Death Shroud. Did they hit something else first, or did the Pyrovores just? No, this must be before the Death Shroud swung. I believe the Death Shroud swung and killed 2 of the 3 Pyrovores. They actually didn't kill the whole unit, but yeah. I think that is right. Let's go on to my turn 3. Okay, nope, I lied. All the Pyrovores are dead. The Death Shroud definitely just killed off all the Pyrovores. So yeah, this is what the board looked like at the start of my turn 3. Swarmlord is currently in combat with a bunch of Plague Marines. And my Fights First Hive Tyrant is down to 1 wound and is out of range of healing because all of the Pyrovores died. And yeah, he's pushing in pretty hard, and he still has a whole nother Death Shroud unit with a character in Deep Strike. Again, potentially 6-inch edge charge Deep Strike, so got to be aware of that as well. And basically, I just try and do what I can. The nice thing is, I do actually hold 2 objectives plus my home, and so I actually get a 6 on the burden plus the 8 for holding 2 objectives in no man's land. So I do score a 14 on primary, which is pretty big. And then I also drew extend and assassinate. Assassinate is very easy for me at this moment. I just need to kill one of these Plague Marine squads that has 2 characters attached. And yeah, so at least I am getting plenty of points, which is keeping me in this game where I'm otherwise getting my army obliterated. I believe Swarmlord has to fall back because otherwise he just dies. And I walked forward with the Pyrovores and flamed all the big boys. And I fired... Oh, this is the turn where both Tyrannifexes shot at the Blight Drone in the middle next to my Hive Tyrant. And they didn't move, so they're hitting on 2s. And my 4 Rupture Cannon shots did 4 wounds, and then he just rolled 4 5-up invulns. So, yeah, that really sucked. This was actually my big play. Swarmlord fell back from the Plague Marines, but he fell back towards the center to put the Plague Marines with my Hive Tyrant in the Vect Aura, and he only had 1 CP, so that meant that he wouldn't be able to do Fights First on those Plague Marines, and my Hive Tyrant would be able to get Fights First because I moved the Pyrovores within 6. So that... I at least had a good play there where I was going to be able to fight first in that combat. But yeah, I fired 4 Rupture Cannon Tyrannifexes and into a Bloat Drone, did 4 wounds, but he made all 4 5-up invulns and did not take any damage from them. So this is what it looks like at the end of my turn 3. I did manage to actually hit back pretty hard again, so I did manage to kill off the Plague Marines that were in combat with the Hive Tyrant. Importantly, that was actually with the Psychophage, made a 10-inch charge to make it over there. And he needed a 10, and I think he rolled an 11, but he made it, and because the, I don't know, Lord of Contagion or the Biologus, one of the characters was a Psyker, so it was a Psyker unit, and I actually got 4 dev wounds through because of that from the Psychophage that just killed off 4 guys. I also had Venom Thropes that had charged in. And again, he couldn't interrupt or anything because Swarmlord had put that unit in Vect range with his fallback. So that was huge. As you can see, yeah, that Bloat Drone in the middle is still alive and unhurt, but I did just charge the Tyrannifex in just to put OC5 in the center and basically body block. Yeah. And the Pyrovores, like I said, ended up shooting at the Plague Marines that Swarmlord fell back from, and I think killed like another 4 of them. So not bad. We are actually whittling him down. The state of the board looks a lot better than it did. and he charged his rhino into my lictor to tie it up, and the lictor just bossed and did 8 damage to it, which was pretty funny. So here's hoping that the lictor can continue to do that and fight his way out of that rhino. But then we move on to Tim's turn 3. So he does hold... he holds the top that I fell back from, as well as his center expansion objective. However, I decide to pop Shadow in the Warp, as I have 3 units within Synapse range. So 3 units are going to be taking tests at -1. He also has 3 units that are below half strength. Oh, that's the other thing. Sorry, the Tallyman on his home. My 1 outflanking Pyrovore showed up and did 3 wounds to the Tallyman, leaving him at 1. But so yeah, and I decided to pop Shadow in the Warp. His entire army has to take a Battle Shock check, 3 of which are at -1, and then he has to take 3 normal Battle Shock checks because he's below half strength as well. And he passed every single one of them. Not a single unit failed anything. So that felt a tad bit ridiculous. But it happens. He did it. I did not take any points from him, and everyone gets to use their strats. So that was fun. And yeah, he gets his 10 primary, and then he drew Secure No Man's Land and Overwhelming Force. So he already has Secure No Man's Land because he didn't fail any of the Battle Shocks, and Overwhelming Force is quite easy. He just has to kill me, which he wants to do anyways. So let's get into his turn. Basically, his second Death Shroud unit does come in, and in shooting, he manages to kill off the 1 wound Hive Tyrant, as well as all of the Pyrovores, and then all of the Death Shroud charge into Swarmlord. So the nice thing about this, I mean, he has only 2 CP, and Swarmlord has a Vectora, so there's only 1 strat that he's going to be able to use this turn. I was hoping it was going to have to be reroll a charge, because he basically had I think a 6-inch charge and a 7-inch charge, but he made both of them, and he didn't need strats to kill off all the Pyrovores in shooting, because the bloat drones were quite good at it, especially when the Lord of Contagion or whoever told him to have full rerolls. So yeah, but the nice thing is that I have 2 CP to interrupt, so one of these Death Shrouds are going to punch me, and then Swarmlord can at least punch the other one, and hopefully do enough damage to the unit that has not fought yet that he can survive. Unfortunately, I don't even know if this was a strat, but I think the one strat that he did use was crit on 5s. And he has sustained lethal with this Death Shroud unit as well for some reason. So and Lance. It was sustained lethal Lance crit on 5s, all in this one unit. And this was his roll with his 3 Death Shroud. He had 12 attacks hitting on 2s, lethal sustained on 5s, and he rolled 6 crits. So yeah, just from this first unit, Swarmlord was overkilled. So no interrupting to try and punch the other unit for me. And then on top of that, what that meant is the other Death Shroud unit got to pile into my Tyrannifex and punch that. And I think they did 8 or 9 damage to it, something like that. This is the end of my turn 4. So I did, again, thankfully, at least the Tyrannifexes did both out OC my opponent. So I did again get at least an 8 on primary and a 4 on burden. So got another 12 primary points. The Lictor is still alive, but after doing 8 damage to that one Rhino in the next 3 rounds of combat, he can't do the final wound, which is kind of funny. But he tried his best. He's at least not dead yet. And then I drew Marked for Death and No Prisoners. His entire army is just right in front of my face, so there's actually not a very good marked for death target. Like whatever he picks, I can essentially throw 2 rupture cannons into. So he picked his 2 Death Shroud units, but everything else I actually had a pretty reasonable chance of killing. And he... what did he choose? I feel like he chose one of the bloat drones. Or no, he chose his Plague Marine unit that was up at the top objective. And then he said something along the lines where for marked for death, if he picks a unit, that I also have to kill the character, at least one of the characters, which I don't think is correct, but it didn't matter because I ended up killing the unit plus the character anyways, because the Psychophage popped off again. He said, oh, look, another Plague Marine unit with a psychic character. I have anti-psyker dev wounds. And he just popped off and killed the remaining 4 Plague Marines plus one of the characters, leaving the other character alive on 2 wounds who had to fall back from him. So Psychophage, for some reason, was the MVP this game. Not the Hive Tyrant, not Swarm Lord, Psychophage. And Harspex also just died without doing anything. But Psychophage MVP, I think he killed 2 characters and like 9 Plague Marines in this game. I also think that was like another 8 or 9 inch charge for him to make it into the Plague Marines in the first place, after he needed a 10-inch charge into the first Plague Marines. So he's literally just bouncing back and forth between the top and the bottom of the table to kill off all the Plague Marines. And way to go, Psychophage. But yeah, because he did that, I actually did get marked for death, which is pretty cool, and I got Assassinate, all from the Psychophage. So thank you, buddy. You are keeping me in this game. Then we move on to Tim's turn 4. Unfortunately, I fire both Tyrannifexes into a bloat drone again, and I still don't even damage it. After he made 4 4-up invulns last time, this time he chose the -1 to hit aura, which counteracted my heavy, and then the Tyrannifex that was in the middle was also in combat. So he was hitting on 4s, and he, of course, rolls 2 3s to hit. So good job, Tim. You picked the right one at the right time for me to be -1 to hit. Yeah, so the center Tyrannifex rolled 2 3s to hit, and the bottom Tyrannifex hit with both, but then rolled Snake Eyes to wound. So yeah, they have not killed a bloat drone yet in 2 rounds of shooting. And then the Pyrovore did manage to finish off the 1 wound Tallyman. But importantly, I was not able to get onto the objective. Otherwise, that would have helped me with some more primary. And then, yeah, Tim's turn 4. He did score a 12 because he did manage to kill off my Tyrannifex at the end, in combat at the end of that turn 4. So he ends up holding the 2 middle objectives as well as the top middle. But I did take away his home. So then he ends up drawing Assassinate, which he auto-scores because both of my Tyrants are already dead. And Behind Enemy Lines, which he promptly pitches and instead gets Area Denial, which he auto-scores because my Tyrannifex had just died in combat. Yeah, let's see what's the end of his turn 4. Or never mind. So this is the end of turn 4. My Tyrannifex did live through this round of combat, but then on his turn, the Death Shroud finished it off, and the 2 Blight Drones did finish off the Psychophage, unfortunately. My MVP has fallen. But so now I'm down to, we get to my turn 5, and all I have left is a Biovore on my home, my Tyrannifex on the center objective, and my Pyrovore in his deployment zone. And unfortunately, the Lictor did finally manage to kill the Rhino, but then it exploded and it killed the Lictor. So that was unfortunate, but yeah, so that left me with the end of this is what the game looks like at the start of my turn 5. Or I guess the end of my turn 5. So I only score 4 because I have the Tyrannifex still on the bottom center, holding that one for primary. And then I draw my secondaries, and I draw recover assets and secure no man's land. Now, here is the dilemma that I'm put in. So essentially, I literally say, hey, sorry, I need to look at this. And I spend like a solid 8 to 10 minutes looking at my remaining secondaries, because I'm actually ahead. Currently, what I can do is guaranteed is I can get a 3 on recover assets because he cannot interact with my Biovore or Pyrovore. They're just too far away for him to get to. So they can guarantee recover for 3 points. And then for secure no man's land, my Tyrannifex can just sit there for 2 points. So that gives me 5 secondary. I am currently ahead 84 to, I think, 60 something. It is basically what it comes down to is if I just sit there and score that, with the knowing that he's going to get a 16 on primary, because I have no idea what his secondaries are going to get, but I do know he still has no prisoners as an objective to draw. So I run away all of my rippers and spore mines to the point where he can't get to them because I don't want to give up easy no prisoners. And the one thing that I could do is I could try and have the Tyrannifex kill a bloat drone one more time to at least take away 2 of his primary points for burden. But the alternative is the Tyrannifex runs away and also tries to recover assets in the middle. And if I do all of that, then I end up getting an 8 on secondaries. And that would mean that he would have to get at least 6 points in his secondaries to win the game. However, that would rely on my Tyrannifex living, which I think is... I don't feel super confident on because I'm staring down 2 Blight Drones as well as 6 Death Shroud and 2 Terminator characters. So I have to make a decision. Do I think the Tyrannifex has a chance of surviving? And if it does, that he is going to score less than 6 secondary points on his turn? Because if that happens, I somehow still win this game. I look at my remaining secondaries. I have 6 of them. Of those 6, I still have like Established Locus. I still have Sabotage, both of which just the 1 Pyrovore at the end could do. Like Sabotage would be ideal because that would give me 6 points just for the 1 Pyrovore. Established Locus would be 4 points just for the 1 Pyrovore, and then I'm not dependent on the Tyrannifex living. I could draw Overwhelming Force, which would be 3 points if the Tyrannifex can kill a bloat drone, at which point, if I do that, it's 3 points for that secondary and 2 points for getting rid of the Burden of Trust. And then I had 2 other objectives. Oh, I had Containment, which basically would just turn into the same thing as Recover Assets, but would not require my Tyrannifex to survive. And then I had Area Denial, and Area Denial was the only secondary that would be a dead draw of the 6, and every single other one would basically be either the same amount of points or more points and not depend on the Tyrannifex living. So I elected to toss Secure No Man's Land and try and get a better secondary rather than just the 2 points, and I drew Area Denial. I drew the 1 objective that was a complete whiff out of the 6 remaining, which unfortunately kind of sealed the game there. I say seals the game there. He does. So basically what I end up doing is the Tyrannifex runs away as far as it can and goes for the full recover. And if it survives, I get 6 points on recover assets. On Tim's turn, he does get the full 16 secondary or 16 primary, scoring 6 from Burden or 4 from Burden and 12 for end game scoring, having 3 objectives. Importantly, he draws Sabotage and Engage on All Fronts. And as you can see with the current board state, in order for him to get engage, he kind of needs to just split because everyone is in the middle. And that one bloat drone that's on the center objective there has to go back into the bottom right corner in order to get those engage points. And when he does so, I realize that if I can overwatch that bloat drone, not only will I deny engage if I can kill it, but I will deny his end turn for primary as well. And if that happens, I somehow still miraculously win by 1 point. This will break my recover assets, and make it where I only get 3 instead of 6, but it takes 6 points away from him, which would net me winning by a single point if this happens. And if I don't do it, he wins by a single point. So I go for it. I spend the CP, roll my 2 big cannon attacks, and I roll a 6 and a 2 to hit. I CP reroll the 2 to try and get 2 hits. I don't get it. And then I roll a 1 to wound. So, hindsight and all that, I guess save the CP for the 2 to wound. But also, he does have a 5-up invuln and has a CP to reroll, so getting 2 hits through would obviously be a more sure thing, because even if the damage does go through, I also have to roll a 4+ on damage to one-shot it. So I was really hoping, I relying on basically getting 2 wounds through. Obviously that's a far shot, but had to try my best for it. But unfortunately, after rolling the 6 to hit, I then rolled a 1 to wound, and the Blight Drone survives, and Tim wins by a point, which turns into 4 points because I broke my recover assets. So the final score is Death Guard victory, 88 to 84. But yeah, I can't be too upset about it. He definitely was dominating the game. The fact I was able to keep it this close. So many swing things for 5 points. Again, his Blight Drone making 4 5-up invulns. The Plague Marines at the very beginning of the game killing my Haruspecs after I only made 3 out of 12 4-up Feel No Pains. This final thing, him not failing a single battle shock out of literally 14 checks, 3 of which were at -1. Yeah, all of that just combined and to lose by about 5 points. So I honestly think it went pretty well. And then obviously the final thing, me redrawing into the only dead draw out of 6 secondaries. Sometimes, it just happens and can't really fight it. Tim ended up going on to win the entire event. He got the golden ticket and got first place. So losing by 4 points to the winner of the event, can't be too upset about that. So congrats to Tim on a game well played, and congrats to him on his golden ticket. Excited to see what he can do at Worlds. Well done to him. And that ends day 1, where I am now 2-1, and we move on to day 2. So with day 2, the deployment map changes, and we shift from GW terrain setup 8 to GW terrain setup 3, and we basically swap to Dawn of War deployment, which again is very different than what I'm used to. But so round 4, I'm playing against Dina Adams, and they brought Chaos Demons, the Bellicor detachment, so Shadow Legion, led by Bellicor and a Bloodthirster. So the cool thing about this detachment is each of the demon gods get a new bonus depending on which god they are. So they have a Bloodthirster with the Fade to Darkness enhancement. So first off, Khorne demons all get Advance and Charge, which is exactly what they've been looking for forever. making them have incredible threat ranges, especially with this Bloodthirster, because the Fade to Darkness enhancement is at the end of the fight phase. If you have killed an enemy unit and you are not in engagement range, then you get to go back into reserve. And so ideally, they kill something, pop back into reserve, and then on my turn, they rapid ingress for as soon as I'm done moving, they rapid ingress back out of line of sight, and then they advance and charge like 16 inches back into something else, and you just literally can't even interact with it. It's really, really powerful. Then we have an Exalted Flamer, which is joining 6 Flamers, which we'll get to in a bit. A Skullmaster, so this is joined to 6 Blood Crushers and has the Leaping Shadows enhancement, which is a 9-inch scout move. So again, this is all Khorne demons that have advance and charge. They move 12 and now they're scout moving 9. So that is absolutely a turn 1 charge unless you have an infiltrating wall to stop them. And then that is still a turn 1 charge just into that wall. We have 6 Nurglings. The Nurgle demons get -1 to wound if your strength is higher than their toughness. So these things are T3, so they're going to be -1 to wound. Also 10 Plague Bearers, same thing. 6 Blood Crushers, as mentioned. These guys just hit really, really hard. They also do impact mortals, which I guess transfers to the character as well. So when they make a charge, you roll a die for every guy in the unit, not just the ones that made engagement range. So they make a turn 1 charge, they roll 7 dice, and every 4 up does D3 mortals. And then inevitably that probably wipes whatever they charged, and they pile into something else and they kill it. Really strong unit. Then 6 Flamers, like I said, joined to the Exalted Flamer. These guys just deep strike and kill chaff. 2 units of 5 Fleshhounds. They now have the up-down ability, which just is fantastic for scoring. 2 Hellflayer Chariots. So Slanesh's ability in this detachment is they cannot be overwatched. So that's really strong for tying up my Pyrovores. And then a unit of 3 Screamers and a unit of 6 Screamers. These units just move pretty fast, and anything they fly over, they can do mortals to. And the Tzeentch ability is -1 to hit all the time, shooting and combat. And then also with the Be'lakor detachment, you can ally in Chaos Space Marines. And Dina did this, but they only brought a 10-man cultist mob. So, but they do get dark packs, and then Be'lakor also gets access to dark packs, but never has to actually take a dark pact check. Auto passes all of them. And that's Dina's list. All right, so for round 4, here is the Dina's army on their tray. And yeah, so we're playing Linchpin, and this is the I always forget the name of this deployment, but we are table quarters with the circle in the middle, so we are very, very close to each other, and turn 1 charges are very easy. Dina does get top of turn, and they elect to charge me right off the bat, so we're getting started early. For secondaries, they do draw Bring It Down and Engage. Engage is easy. They have some Fleshhounds up in the top left quadrant, and they're trying to get into my deployment zone. They charge in with the Blood Crushers into my front line of Pyrovores, and they double charge 2 Chariots into my Fight's First Hive Tyrant to try and do a bunch of mortals. I actually heroically intervene with the Swarm Lord, A, to get some extra movement out of it, and B, to just ensure that both Chariots die and I do not get tied down, because I really don't want to sit in my deployment zone waiting for Be'lakor and the Bloodthirster to charge me next turn. The Blood Crushers do very much kill off all 3 of my Pyrovores, killing the entire unit, so they do not get an opportunity to heal. On my turn 1, I end up drawing Recover Assets and No Prisoners. Recover Assets I basically move my Haruspecs up onto the flank objective and begin recovering over there, and I let my Venom Thropes recover in my home. Then I basically have a choice to make. I do have Blood Crushers just sitting down at my home area that I need to deal with, but I also can potentially charge if Swarmlord wants to come out now that he had heroicked and basically started the game in the center of the board. He would be able to go over and punch Be'lakor if that is something that I wanted to go for. I moved in that direction, getting ready for it. I also moved my Hive Tyrant forward, getting ready to charge their 6 Screamers that were on their flank objective. That would be a 7-inch charge for the Hive Tyrant to have made that. And instead, I finished doing all my movement. I then look at it and decide to change course. I don't remove any of my models, but I decide I'm just going to try and remove all of Dina's scoring pieces as quickly as possible and try and clean up these, at least a decent chunk of these Blood Crushers in my deployment zone. So instead of the Swarmlord going after Be'lakor, the Swarmlord ended up charging north onto the into that ruin where Dina had some Blood Crushers, and Swarmlord just ate all of those and then piled back onto the objective. And then my Hive Tyrant and his Tyrant Guard multi-charged, where the Hive Tyrant and a Tyrant Guard got to hit their 6 Nurglings, and the other 4 remaining Tyrant Guard basically got to punch the remaining Blood Crushers after both Tyrannofexes shot into them as well. And the Psychophage also flamed and charged in. With all of that, I managed to pick up the 6 Blood Crushers, but I had not done any damage to the character. The character, in response, does 4 wounds to the Psychophage. Actually, rather, instead of 4 wounds to the Psychophage, no, the character killed 2 more Tyrant Guard, which was not ideal because now my Hive Tyrant is facing down a Bloodthirster and only has 2 Tyrant Guard protecting them. The one trick that I did do is I did actually have a Ripper suicide into the Bloodthirster, charged on in, died, and I used my free strat for the round to get the +1 to wound on the Bloodthirster, assuming that would come in handy later. Dina's turn 2, then they elect to actually have Be'lakor and the Bloodthirster both go into the Swarmlord and try and basically mortal down my Hive Tyrant and then charge in the 6 Screamers who have anti-monster 4 up to try and finish off the Hive Tyrant. Relying on the -1 to hit and the 4 up invuln to keep it safe. Be'lakor and the Bloodthirster both make it in. We decided to take a nice action shot of Be'lakor and the Swarmlord fighting each other. But Be'lakor goes in and kills off 3 of the Swarmlord's Tyrant Guard. I then interrupt, and Swarmlord has to attack Be'lakor, and the 3 remaining Tyrant Guard get to punch the Bloodthirster with +1 to wound, which is nice because that makes them wounded on 4s. Unfortunately, I only did 1 wound with the Tyrant Guard. Swarmlord, with his 8 attacks, got 2 through and did 6 damage to Be'lakor. The Blood Crusher then swings and kills off the remaining Tyrant Guard and puts 3 damage on Swarmlord, and then promptly is no longer in engagement range and vanishes back into the warp to come in on my turn. My turn 2, I basically have a single goal, kill Be'lakor. My Hive Tyrant didn't really take a ton of damage from the Screamers. I think he killed half of them with the fights first. And then basically in this turn, just stayed in combat with him because I still had fights first to kill the rest. I think I took 4 damage. And so basically Swarmlord had to fall back from Be'lakor, and then I advanced both Tyrannofexes forward, got within 6 inches of the Hive Tyrant to still be able to shoot, which put them within 18 inches so they could shoot Bellicor. Unfortunately, the one wound that I actually did through stealth, because I was hitting on 4s thanks to Bellicor's stealth, the one wound that I did, Dina CP rerolled and made the save. So Bellicor took no damage from the Tyrannofexes, but the Pyrovores did 6 damage, or 5 damage. So 6 damage from Swarmlord, 5 damage from the Pyrovores. Bellicor was down to 9. I then charged in the Haruspex, popped my 1 CP lethal on 5s, and rolled 3 lethal hits on my big claw attacks, of which Dina failed all 3 4-up invulns there. And because had already CP rerolled against the Tyrannofex, all 3 of the Haruspex's attacks went through, and I rolled, it was 3d6 plus 3. I only rolled a 6 on my 3d6, but 3d6 plus 3 is 9. That is exactly how many wounds Bellicor had remaining, and Bellicor went down. I did still have my 14 mouth attacks as well, but thankfully didn't have to roll those. All right, but as mentioned, the Bloodthirster did rapid ingress back in, and basically then prepared to charge and take out my Hive Tyrant once and for all. Dina also brought in the Flamers and to kill off basically the remnants that had finished off the Blood Crushers, and then had some Screamers that were basically fighting my Lictor, ended up running and stealing my objective that the Haruspex had stickied before running to get Bellicor. Unfortunately, at this point, the Bloodthirster, as you can see, came forward here and then failed the 6-inch charge into my Hive Tyrant. Dina rolled a 4 and unfortunately could not. So basically what they did is, because the Pyrovores had done 6 damage to Bellicor, and that was without +1 to wound, Dina was actually respecting the Pyrovore overwatch, and so put the Bloodthirster just behind the wall where only a single Pyrovore could see it, and I didn't. So basically to protect it from overwatch there, but that made it where the Bloodthirster needed the 6-inch charge, and Dina rolled a 4. And because of Swarmlord and the Vect Aura, or actually it might be out of the Vect Aura, Dina had used a CP earlier to, I think, swap secondaries, and just had no CP. Unfortunately failed the charge, which means that Bloodthirster did not kill anything, which means it cannot go into reserve, and it is just stuck out in the open, staring down to Tyrannofexes and my army. Which the Tyrannofexes promptly looked at it and blew it to smithereens with +1 to wound and hitting. So 4 shots, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. 2 of them got through the 4-up invuln and did 12 plus 2d6 damage. Ripped it to smithereens, and that basically meant that I had the rest of my army to pick up all of Dina's small little trash units, which I was able to do fairly effectively. The only exception being those 2 Screamers on the top left objective. My Lictor and Pyrovore came down and attacked them, put it down to where there was a single Screamer with 1 wound left. Next turn, Dina spent a CP, which heals them and brings 1 back. And then on my turn, I killed 1 and left 1 with 1 wound left. And then next turn, Dina spent 1, and literally for 3 rounds, 3 different times I put it down to 1 wound, and then Dina brought it back to 6 full wounds. So that was pretty entertaining there. But I did manage to basically take the home. One of the crazy points was the Haruspex charged in and killed the Bloodhounds, which actually there's some cultists right there behind that wall. And because the Haruspex killed the Bloodhounds in combat, I've never actually gotten to use this before. The cultists were within 6 inches of that, saw it, and had to take a battle shock check, failed, and that was important because Dina currently had Defend Stronghold. So that actually took 3 points away, even though the Haruspex was not even, didn't actually get to their home objective. But yeah, ended up cleaning up that game from here on out, and got a pretty big score, 94 to 52. But very entertaining game. I will say I did have actually a substantial amount of experience into this exact archetype. One of my main practice partners plays exactly this army. So, all right, and that brings us finally to round 5. We're 2 hours in. Last game, guys. Good job making it this far. Thank you for sticking around. Hope you've been enjoying it. Again, let me know if you like this new format. But let's get into the game. We have Noah Badome. I've gone to several tournaments with Noah before. He's an orc player through and through, and has been playing this Green Tide for at least 2 years that I've seen. I believe what he told me was this is what he painted during the pandemic, and he's been playing it ever since. So it's the Green Tide. It is just a shitload of boys. You have 2 Pain Boys and 2 War Bosses, both joined to a 20-boy squad. One War Boss, I'm not actually sure. Oh, one War Boss gives him extra CP, and one War Boss just has a Strength 14, 8 damage 4, like Power Claw or something like that. And then obviously the Pain Boys give the unit a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is really big because this detachment's ability is as long as the unit has 10 or more boys, then they get a 5-up Invuln. So these 20-boy units have 5-up Invuln, 5-up Feel No Pain, and they're T5. Very difficult and annoying to chew through. And on top of that, there's 3 more squads of boys on top of just those 2. So yeah, 90 boys, and then one of those giant units goes in a battle wagon. The third unit of 20 boys actually joins a weird boy who has the jump, which basically can just teleport turn 1 up to 9 away from you. And then on top of that, he did bring Gretchen to hold his home field, commandos to form a scout wall, 2 units of 5 Storm Boys to do secondaries, and then 2 units of 6 Tank Bustas that go in a truck and basically just shoot a ton of rockets. So this list has at least some shooting in it, and some good anti-tank, anti-monster, which he definitely is going to need against me. The boys actually don't do a ton of damage to me, it is a ridiculous number of attacks, like 76 attacks, hitting on 2s with a War Boss, Strength 5, AP 1 for 1, and he can spend a CP to reroll all wounds. So that does put like 40 wounds on average to my T8 guys. But at AP 1 for 1, I'm gonna take 20 of those, and then Feel No Pain knocks it down to like 15. I lose 4 of my Tyrant Guard and bring 1 back. And like obviously that hurts, but it's not the absolute end of the world. Let's first take a look at Noah's army, because the first thing he says, how I find out that I'm playing him, is he walks up to me and he's like, "Well, Matt, it's you're the only thing standing between me and best overall," because he's doing pretty well in the tournament, currently 3-1, hoping to go 4-1, and he has obviously a really well painted army with a very nice display board. So yeah, here's a picture of the display board. We'll show a few more images of closer up shots because he's got a lot of custom work in here as well. But yeah, so here's a bunch of his custom characters. These are War Bosses, Pain Boys, the Weird Boy. Yeah, obviously tons of custom work. He did really great. They look fantastic. And doing this level of detail on a Green Tide that has over 100 models is insane. So very good job to Noah. He's got custom vehicles as well, custom trucks, custom battle wagons. I'll give you guys just a few seconds where if you want you can pause the video, take a zoom in on these images, but just let you truly appreciate the army. And then we will get into round 5. So the important thing about round 5 is, again, we're playing Terrain Layout 3, which I don't have a lot of experience on. And on top of that, we are playing Sweeping Engagement, which I have not played in a very long time. And on top of even that, we're playing Supply Drop, which I honestly didn't even know that was still in Prime Nexus missions. But this is the one where the objectives disappear, and by the end of the game, you only have a single objective that is worth 15 points. This is a very imbalanced mission because it just depends on where the final objective is, and if that happened to be close to where you started, then you just come off with a huge advantage. There's also a massive advantage to going second because you have a turn to try and punch the opponent off of that 15-point objective. So here is our deployment. Once again, I basically deployed just right on the line. With both the Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord, literally their bases touching with each other at the one point that Noah would guaranteed be able to charge if he went first and decided to pop the Wah, because there's like 16 inches of no man's land between those two corners. Very easy with an advance and charge for him to make it into me. So I wanted to make sure that I had both the Vect Aura and the free fights first to be able to support each other if he elects to do that. Noah, on the other hand, though, actually deploys pretty defensively, not quite deploying on the line, keeping everything like 30 inches away from me, which again I find pretty funny. It doesn't matter. I do tell my opponents every single game I have a threat range of like 18 inches, and everyone still stays way back. I think it's just habit because every other army has a much longer reach, and people just fall into patterns. But Noah does deploy pretty far back, and basically his jump unit is on his home objective alongside some Gretchen who are there to get him CP. So I do luck out because Noah does end up getting first turn, which is what I wanted. If I had gotten first turn, all I would have done is walk into his range. And instead, he has to basically do the same thing. And also having bottom of turn on this mission, like I said, is an advantage. Unfortunately, I got the disadvantage of the objectives disappear from left to right in this screen. So the left objective is going to be the first to disappear, followed by the center, and the right objective, which I basically start the game with only a Haruspex and 3 Pyrovores across from, is the one that's going to be the final objective. So I'm going to have to basically fight my way through the center, through a Green Tide army of 100 boys to get to that objective, which is going to be some pretty hard work, but we'll see if I can do it. So here's what the board looks like at the end of turn 1. Noah did draw Assassinate and Overwhelming Force. That's pretty rough because he elected not to go after the Wah and charge me turn 1. He could have. He could have potentially gotten Assassinate if he just went all in right off the bat, but he elected not to and just score a 0 on secondaries. And instead, as you can see, he basically pushed forward, massive flanks of boys on the right and left. His battle wagon pushed forward to basically be a second wave because there's another 20 boys in there with Pain Boy and War Boss, and he did the jump over to the important objective on the right. So there's a full 40 boys showing up over there. Oh, and on top of that, the extra mission was like rapid escalation. So those 20 boys just outflanked from reserve turn 1 because that's what you can do in this mission. And then on the left, his other 20-man boy squad plus his 10-man boy squad both managed to make a charge into my Lictor. That was like an 8-inch charge and a 10-inch charge, and he made both of them. Thankfully, because it was so far, not all of them got to punch me, and the Lictor actually survived with a single wound left. Only killed 3 boys himself, but managed to actually be able to fall back. He did need a desperate breakout that he would have died on a 1, 2, or 3 because he failed Battle Shock, but thankfully he rolled a 4 and he was able to fall back. here is the end of my turn 1. I decided to get very aggressive and basically brought my Pyrovores forward. So with the Green Tide, he does have access to a Blood Surge stratagem. So I need to be aware that anything that I shoot can pile d6 inches straight towards me, and it can get into combat range, which then stops me from being able to continue to shoot that unit. So what I did is I threw forward a Ripper into the 20-man squad on the top left, then flamed them with 3 Pyrovores. I think I killed 6 boys. They blood surged into the Ripper, killed it, and I spent a CP to get +1 to wound on that unit for the rest of the game. And the only thing I missed out on was the 1 Pyrovore had to shoot the 10-man purple squad instead, and I think he also killed 5 boys on top of the 3 that the Lictor had killed earlier. So leaving only 2 boys left on his 10-man squad and killing 5 of the 20-man squad over there. The Pyrovores on the bottom right went over and killed the 5 Storm Boys that were blocking a charge from the Haruspecs. And then the Hive Tyrant and my 3 Raveners charged into the Commandos and killed those. However, he heroically intervened into the Raveners with his jump squad. And the Raveners killed, I think, 4 boys from that squad before being punched to death. And the Haruspecs, I think, killed 6 boys from the 20-man squad up there. And then importantly, the Tyrannofexes, one popped the truck that was full of rockets, and the other one brought the battle wagon down to 3 wounds. So not bad. Good job, Tyrannofexes. They actually did their job very well. And now I'm in a position where I have Swarmlord in the center, supported by the Hive Tyrant ready to heroically intervene with fights first. And then Pyrovores on either side waiting to overwatch, including a +1 to wound on the top left squad, and Haruspecs ongoing combat with 20 boys that have no character, so their punchback did 1 damage to the Haruspecs because they're hitting me on 3s, wounding me on 6s, and I have a 4-up save. So yeah, not really concerned there unless he brings another squad in. And as far as my secondaries, I had Area Denial and Establish Locus, and because Noah had gone just straight down the flanks, I was able to achieve both of those with just Swarmlord walking into the center and doing an Establish Locus. So then we get to Noah's turn 2. So Noah's turn 2 is insanely bloody. He does end up popping the Wah and charges me with the entirety of his army after shooting me with all of his tank bustas and using all of his bomb squigs. And essentially, after the dust is cleared, I've lost a ton of stuff. The tank bustas rolled insane, and the first squad managed to literally kill off all but 1 of my Tyrant Guard. And from the Fights First unit, which is definitely really bad. It did take both Tank Busta squads to do that, but still really bad. I went down to a single Tyrant Guard with 1 wound left, and then he charged his Battle Wagon into my Hive Tyrant. Keep in mind the Battle Wagon only had 3 wounds left from the Tyrannofex earlier. He fell back from my Haruspecs, basically just surrounding it and making it where instead of it continuing to fight and kill boys, I'm trapped on the side and I'm just going to have to charge in, and essentially I only get half as many activations to punch him this way. So very smart play on his part. But yeah, and then he double charges both 20-man squads into Swarmlord. Both 20-man squads that have the War Bosses and Pain Boys that do actually all of the damage to me. And with the tail end of one of those squads picking up the 3 Pyrovores. I did elect to overwatch the Weird Boy squad on the bottom right with those Pyrovores because as much as I would love to overwatch the red squad that had the +1 to wound, it was free to overwatch the bottom right because they were within 12 of the Hive Tyrant, and I needed all the CP to interrupt with Swarmlord. Unfortunately, the way that things ended up working out, I don't remember what I spent the CP on, but it was a good thing that I did because I wasn't going to be able to interrupt anyways, because basically the red squad charged the Pyrovores and then piled into Swarmlord, so if I had interrupted, I could have only fought the green squad, which had already punched me. But basically, did I do lethal hits or something? I don't remember, but I did kill the battle wagon with my fight's first unit. That's what it was. The battle wagon charged the fight's first unit, got within 3 of a spore mine, and because I only had a single Tyrant Guard left with 1 wound, I took the dead spore mine and turned it into another Tyrant Guard because I thought it would be really important to keep that unit alive to be able to continue regenerating rather than interrupting with Swarmlord, and that ended up paying off because, I wouldn't have been able to interrupt with Swarmlord anyways. Unfortunately, the green squad piled in and did manage to finish off the 2 Tyrant Guard anyways. And between the green and red war bosses, I did lose most of Swarmlord's Tyrant Guard. I went down to a single Tyrant Guard with just a couple wounds left, and my other Hive Tyrant has no Tyrant Guard. And I've lost an entire Pyrovore squad, and my other Pyrovore squad is now tagged in combat with the Weird Boy unit. So that is the extent of Noah's turn 2. Basically, all of my ablative wounds are dead, and all of my flamers are currently turned off. So then we get to my turn 2, where I draw Cleanse and Overwhelming Force. Cleanse is not going to happen. Every single objective is swarming in Orc Boys, so I'm not going to be able to do an action. But Overwhelming Force, hey, every objective is swarming with Orc Boys, so I just have to kill them off of them, and then I start scoring some points. So, unfortunately, both of my Tyrants are still in ongoing combats, so my Hive Tyrant gets to fight first, but Swarmlord is just going to get punched, and I'm just going to have to eat it, so hopefully Swarmlord survives. And then the Haruspecs charged back into the brown squad in the top right, and basically the Psychophage and Tyrannifex came over to rescue the Pyrovores that were being held up by the remainder of the Weird Boy squad. So I did finish those off, and then the Lictor and Pyrovore finished off the 2-man purple squad that was on the top left. So I did get the 1 objective up there, so hopefully I can at least start scoring some primary on turn 3 before that objective disappears. And then, I'm trying to precision out, basically, with my fights first, I managed to precision out both the War Boss and the Pain Boy from the green squad, and then Noah gets to punch Swarmlord with the red squad. He spends a CP to be able to punch me from within 3 inches, getting significantly more boys able to punch me. And he kills off all of my Tyrant Guard and brings Swarmlord down to 5 wounds. Swarmlord then punches back, but I've already precisioned out for the turn, so I can't continue to precision with Swarmlord. And he kills, 4 boys, something like that. And that is the extent of my turn, so it is looking pretty rough at the moment. I'm still trapped in combat with Swarmlord with a pretty big unit. My Haruspecs is, again, killing like 5 boys per round. He's gonna win the fight eventually. The problem is I'm not scoring any points in the meantime. So at the end of turn 2, I literally scored not a single point. I didn't get any primary, and I didn't score any secondary because, I just didn't kill any units that were actually on the objectives. However, I did decide to keep Overwhelming Force because Noah's choices were either to continue fighting me or to fall back and do nothing. And if he continues fighting me, then I will probably finish off one of these units in his turn. And that is indeed what happened. Noah stayed in combat. I finished off like a 3-man squad and got my 3 points in his turn. But for Noah, he did end up holding all 3 objectives for his turn 3. So sorry, he did have 1 boy remaining on that top left squad. The Pyrovore killed 1 and the Knob was still left there. And unfortunately that Knob was OC2. So Noah spent 1 CP to auto pass. No, he didn't even do that. He just actually rolled the 7 and was good. But the tipping point here was that Swarmlord was still in combat and Red Squad did decide to fall back from him so that way all the tank busters could shoot Swarmlord. However, they used all of their pulse rockets in the previous turn, so their AP was only 2, and as you can see the Venom Thropes are right there giving Swarmlord cover. So that meant that Swarmlord actually had a 3-up save against them, and because they used their pulse rockets, they were now strength 9 instead of 10, which means that they were wounding me on 4s instead of 3s, and they just did significantly less damage than the previous turn. They also no longer had a blast target. So all of that combined means that whereas last turn all of these tank busters literally picked up 5.5 Tyrant Guard, this turn they literally did not do a single wound. Swarmlord literally failed 1 save that I CP rerolled for free from my Hive Tyrant and passed all my 3-ups. So did not take a single wound. And then, yeah, the Flash Gits, same thing. They're shooting at me. I'm a 2-up with cover. So I just took no damage. And because his only real combat unit fell back, I literally took no damage from him at all on turn 3. And yeah, that was pretty good for me considering how much damage I took turn 2. The only thing that actually did happen, so sorry, he fell back, so I didn't kill him in combat. The one thing that happened was his Knob on the top left objective fell back from the Pyrovore, and I overwatched him and he died. So I killed that Knob to get overwhelming force, and then on top of that, I now hold that objective for my turn 3. So we get to my turn 3 where I score 5 primary just for holding the top left only. Unfortunately, I'm still out OC'd on the other ones because boys are OC2 and he still has a ton of them. But for my secondaries, I draw Bring It Down. He doesn't have any vehicles or monsters left, so I get to redraw that. And I draw Storm Hostile and No Prisoners. Both very easy to do. He has tons of guys on objectives, so I just need to kill him off and take him for myself. So I begin healing Swarmlord, who is at 5. I think I rolled max, and he heals back up to 9, which was pretty cool. The Haruspex is still in combat with the brown squad, but has now killed. He keeps killing like 5 per round. I think he kills 4 or 5 per round. I think there's 7 or 8 left. The Haruspex actually decides this turn to fall back and let the now untouched Pyrovores to go up and try and finish off those last 8 guys, and the Psychophage goes over to join them just in case, as well as the Tyrannifex pushes up, so the entirety of that bottom right flank moves up to finish off the brown squad, while the Haruspex falls up to go kill those. There's some Gretchen hiding out in that ruin up there, so the Haruspex is going to go and try and eat those next turn. And the turn goes incredibly successfully. Essentially, so now that the Pyrovore and Lictor have taken the top left and that objective is about to disappear, they're free to go in and hit this red squad in the center from the left side. My Tyrannifex is on my home objective, moves up to hit the red squad in the center, and then basically that's just going to keep that red squad pinned for the rest of the game. And basically some Venom Thropes get to just hit and actually do damage from the top right. And because of that, because of just me hitting them at all different angles, they're not really able to pile in anywhere because everyone has to move towards the closest. And that just basically is going to keep this unit from doing anything because he doesn't have fallback and charge. He doesn't have enough boys with enough attacks to actually kill any of the things that just charged into him. And that allows my Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord to go in and basically clean up all of his tank bustas. So with this turn, I actually kill just about everything. The Lictor also succeeds in precisioning out the War Boss in the red squad, so I truly removed all the damage other than the Pain Boy's Power Claw. And yeah, so now this red squad is basically, they end up down to, I think, like 9 boys after all of this, and it's 9 boys that are spread on 3 different fronts, really unable to do a whole lot. The Pyrovores on the right objective managed to kill 5 of them, 4 or 5 of them, and basically there's 4 left for the Psychophage to try and kill. I roll a 2 for number of attacks on the Psychophage, CP re-roll it into a 5 that turns into a 6, but because they're below half strength, I'm hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. The Wah is fully over, so he only has 6 up invulns, and I do manage to kill the 4 remaining boys exactly, and which is very nice because he potentially could have spent CP to like regenerate D3+3 models. So very glad that I finished him off to the last man so he couldn't do that. And yeah, I basically left him with red squad floundering and 5 flash gits remaining at the end of this turn. And I have now actually taken most of the objectives. And then on Noah's turn 4, he spends a CP to bring guys back to the red squad. What I just mentioned, where he brings back D3+3. I think he brings 5 guys back, and he does manage to put them on the center objective, which does take that objective back for him. I did Shadow in the Warp this turn to try and prevent him from getting that, but he manages to pass all of his battle shocks, even at -1. So, unfortunately, he does get the 8 points for holding the center, now that there's only 2 objectives left. But as far as his secondaries, he draws Defend Stronghold and Establish Locus. So there is a single boy remaining from like the green squad earlier, and he also passed the Shadow in the Warp and his normal Battle Shock check. So he was able to do an Establish Locus in the center. While the Flash Gits basically tried punching through my 2-up armor save with cover and failed. And Red Squad managed to kill the Lictor, but we're still in combat with the Tyrannofex and some Venomthropes. I think they killed me down to 1 Venomthrope with 2 wounds left, but weren't quite able to finish him off. And yeah, that was his entire turn. And then my turn 4... I get an 8 because I hold the bottom right objective, and I end up drawing Defend Stronghold and Assassinate, which is pretty cool because he still has a Pain Boy in that red squad, and I have 2 Hive Tyrants just ready to jump on him. So that's what I do. I charge in with both of them into the red squad, or I charge Swarm Lord into the Flash Gits to finish those off, and I charge the Hive Tyrant into the red squad. I spend my CP to Precision, and I do 8 wounds out of my 10 attacks onto the Pain Boy. And then Noah just bosses all of the Invulns and Feel No Pains and takes 3 damage and lives on 1 after I did like 8 wounds that were 2 or 3 damage apiece. So yeah, I ended up not getting Assassinate on bottom of 4, and however, my Harspecs did make the charge into his grots that were on his home objective and killed all of them, which denied Noah from getting Defend Stronghold. And then turn 5, essentially Noah's choices are fall back with his 1 red unit and do nothing, or stay in combat and try and survive and punch me. But that is his only unit remaining on the table. And obviously the objective in the center has now disappeared, so he doesn't get any primary. And yeah, so he still has Defend Stronghold since I denied that from him, spending a CP to get rid of it. He ends up with Bring It Down and Engage as his secondaries, but cannot score either one of them. And yeah, so Noah is basically up by 9 points at the end of turn 5. Like, he literally didn't even do anything. He had 51 points at the end of turn 4, and at the end of turn 5, he's still going to have 51 points. And I'm guaranteed to score 15 on the bottom right objective when I have 42 points. So that would put me up to 57 to his 51. And then the secondaries, I also finished scoring my Defend Stronghold at the end of his turn 5. So that would put me up to 60. And then I held on to Assassinate to go kill the character one more time because he only has 1 wound left, and I can now precision him again. And I drew Extend, which obviously I score. So I get 70 points. And I do beat Green Tide. However, I don't even know if I want to finish. I guess I'll go into it. So this is what ended up happening, like, table-wise. However, the score was basically redacted because when we finished round 4, we had less than 10 minutes remaining. So even though there was literally like nothing left on the table, I had 6 minutes on my clock left, and Noah had 1 minute on his. And so Noah's like, well, we don't play turn 5 because we don't have 10 minutes remaining. And to be fair, he had talked about this at the beginning of the game, that he lost round 3 because his opponent did this to him, where he actually had like an emergency call where his kid went to the ER and he had to deal with a bunch of insurance information, and his opponent just let the clock run anyways and then clocked him out, and he ended up losing by 3 points because they didn't have enough time to play turn 5 because they had less than 10 minutes collectively. So he got ruled against on that, and then basically because in this game we had 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, he's like, well, I got it ruled against me in round 3 and that's why I lost, so now we have less than 10 minutes, and so we're not playing turn 5. I'm not getting screwed both ways on this. We called a judge. The judge ruled in my favor initially, but again, Noah was pretty upset by that, saying, again, doesn't want to be screwed both ways because they ruled against him earlier the other way, and now they're ruling against him this way. So he went to go talk to the guy, to Bob running the event, and Bob agreed that, yeah, they need to be consistent with this. So they walked it back and said, we are not playing turn 5, which means I did not score 28 points. So, yeah, I ended up losing this game, actually, retroactively, with Noah winning 51-42 because we ended up not playing turn 5, even though he was basically tabled, and all I do is sit there and I kill his one character that he has remaining and get my extend. But again, I don't really blame Noah specifically because he lost round 3 because of this. But yeah, so officially in the tournament, I went 3-2. Telling myself I went 4-1. I think that's fair based on what happened. Again, I don't really blame Noah. I was just kind of collateral damage in all of this. Honestly, sounds like it was the round 3 guy that Noah fought that was kind of a dick about it. But it was also in the player packet that is how it's supposed to be played. That if you have less than 10 minutes, you're not supposed to start a new round without judge permission. So, yeah. And then so that was the event. I ended up going 3-2, and Noah actually does win best overall. So that win was enough for him to get best overall, and my other loss was to Death Guard, who won, who got first place. So literally, this was a 120 person tournament with 2 golden tickets, and I lost 2 games, and it was to the 2 people who won the golden tickets. So can't be too upset about that. Very happy with the way I played. Very happy with the list, and think it is still very strong, even with all the very powerful new Chaos stuff coming out. We'll see how I do against T-Suns. This is a very long video, so thank you guys so much if you stuck around for the whole thing. Let me know what you think of the format. Again, normally I've been splitting this up into day 1 and day 2, but that has not been very successful, so that's why this video is 2.5 hours long. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. I'm playing in a team tournament in 2 weeks. We'll see if I make a video about that. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.